Hello, hello, hello. I'm back. How are you? All right. Today's Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022. And I'm going to start going through this very Morphew affidavit. I mean, I've been through it many different times, but I've never done it in the channel. So I thought I would do that, and we'll just kind of see where it takes us. Okay. Remember, the arrest affidavit was written and released May 4th, 2021 to the courts, about the time he was arrested then later. And then we didn't get to see it for, I think it was like a year. So lots of people rushed, to cover it on their channel when it was new. I just felt like it was better served to wait until we got closer to time for the trial to begin, to sort of refresh everyone's memory. And I'll do the same thing with the whole Chad Daybell case. Is once we get closer to that, then we'll go back through a whole bunch of that information. I gotta say though, the Chad Daybell, there's so much. It's really staggering how much information is there. It's not the case with the whole Barry Morphew thing. So I'm just gonna see if I had a different picture to put up. Let's see, did I put something else up? I guess I could put the family picture up. Okay, it's a little bit better. All right, so I'll go ahead and start. So, the undersigned being duly sworn deposes that the affidavit is made in support of an application for arrest warrant for Barry Morphew, age 53 at the time. Affian is investigating the disappearance and murder of Suzanne, who was 49, and she was reported missing on Sunday, May the 10th, 2020. And we know all those details. The crimes, let's see, the charges are committing murder in the first degree, tampering with physical evidence, attempt to influence a public servant, and took affirmative steps to conceal the murder in the months that followed. And remember, this really culminated in a rather, I'm gonna say, from an investigative point of view, it culminated in a rather spectacular manner, because they had this information for so long. But it wasn't until CBI and one of the detectives kind of had this big organized sit down with Barry and did what they called an accounting, where they had him retell his story, and then as he retells his story, they're giving him the actual evidence that's been verified and collected, things that you can't argue with, things like the truck telematics. And he really, I think he really did have his back in a corner, and he ended up saying, I don't know, or I don't recall, more than 100 times in like a 2-hour meeting. I mean, I'll never forget, me and BZ looked at each other like, what? That is crazy. So that while there are many people that, including this judge, while there are many people that say, oh, we don't have a body, we don't have a smoking gun, we don't have this, we don't have that, we got 100 I don't recall, and tranquilized chipmunks. I mean, we got some pretty atrocious lies coming out of a man that he just doesn't seem to be able to remember, even, what kind of shoes he was wearing at one point in the day. So there's some pretty strong circumstantial evidence. I think it's going to be really hard for a jury of intelligent, rational people to look at what they've collected and say, no, it could have been someone else. I just can't believe that anyone would be able to look away. When the DNA was still on the table, and that is my thought. That is why the lead detective said that he did not want Barry arrested just yet. I think that he wanted to wrap up the investigation on the DNA to make sure that it was ruled out and it would not be a part of the Barry Morphew case. But they kind of jumped the gun and went for it, and that kind of backfired because it did made the detectives look bad, look unprepared, but ultimately now that has been thrown out. So with that gone, the only thing that they've got left that could possibly really create some questions, I suppose, are the unusual bank accounts that she opened up that had Libler's name on them. And again, I think they'll explain that away. I think it'll be, I keep my fingers crossed. I hope they can connect them to Barry. I hope Barry's the one that opened them up. I hope Barry looked like he was trying to frame her as a gone girl. But we'll see how that goes. So with the DNA out, I think it's a done deal. I really do. It's very strong circumstantial stuff. All right. So in January 2020, Suzanne took very clear steps to separate from and divorce her husband, Barry. She told friends and family, she told many people her intentions. She also got a recording device to secretly record notes of her abuse. She goaded Barry into these conversations about the money, and all that got captured on the camera. I mean, on the spy pen. Um, she was overheard in arguments with Barry. Um, and 4 days before she disappeared, she said, I'm done. Let's handle this civilly. And basically saying that, she wanted out. Barry, when he first met with the investigators, he told them that his marriage was perfect. So he comes up and he says, where's the bicycle? That's weird to me because, that was weird because I sounded a little like Nicole Kessinger. Terrifying. Okay. It's weird to me that when he pulled up, he doesn't jump out of his truck and say, Suzanne, did you find her? Is she down here? Right. It's kind of odd that he would jump out and say, where's the bicycle? The other thing that's very interesting, if you go back and look at that recording, is when he jumps out and says, where's the bicycle? He's walking toward where the bicycle was found. So he knew where the bicycle was, in my opinion. All right. Now then, so he's confronted by CBI, FBI, and Sheriff's Department, and he says, oh man, Suzanne's awesome. We have a perfect marriage. It's great. And they said, well, Barry, are things okay? Like, what do you think your wife might be leaving you? Oh, no, absolutely not. Suzanne would not leave me. We have a great marriage. We just had steak the other night. It's been great. Okay. Barry's statements about his actions in the days before Suzanne's disappearance have all basically been proven to be false and misleading. Barry knowingly destroyed evidence that would have proven that his relationship with Suzanne had deteriorated and that he was involved, they believe, in her disappearance and ultimately homicide. Suzanne's bicycle and helmet were recovered near the Morphew residence, and they believe that Barry discarded both as he left town in the early morning hours of May the 10th. The investigation indicates that the items were not indicative of an accident, nor an animal attack, nor Suzanne being a runaway, nor Suzanne committing suicide, nor Suzanne being the victim of a stranger abduction. And let me just say this. It is so weird that Barry Morphew, in the beginning of this terrible, terrible nightmare, says, oh, maybe they took my wife to sell her into the sex trade. That's just weird, Barry. All record checks available to FBI and the local law enforcement indicate that as of April 30th, 2021, Suzanne has not used a credit card nor a social security number, nor has she been contacted by law enforcement, nor has she flown on a plane, nor crossed a border, not established housing nor utilities, or otherwise done any of the activities or normal pattern of life for more than 355 days. At this point, though, we're actually looking at over 600 days. Based upon the legal supposition, that was their condition that she is dead, so they can charge for homicide. Based on a lack of proof of life, she's considered deceased, and that was from People versus Scott. Within a month or so of Barry moving Suzanne and their daughter from Indiana, and talking about the younger daughter, Macy, Mallory was already in college in Colorado. Um, Within a month of moving from Indiana to Colorado, Suzanne had reached out to Jeff Libler with a hello or howdy stranger, and that was in April 2018. Libler lives in Michigan. They began communicating regularly from 2018, and finally they met in 2019. They would eventually meet in, I believe, 5 different states, where they would eventually start having, consensual sex. By September 2019, Barry took clear steps to determine if Suzanne was having an affair by stalking her at their home in Salida. This was witnessed not only by Sheila Oliver, but it was also witnessed by the neighbor because he came out with a gun, remember? All right. Barry took Suzanne's phone from her when they were in a resort in January 2019. He could tell that she was communicating with someone, but he could not figure out the identity, so he claimed. On May the 8th, 2020, Suzanne saved into her notes section of the phone that Barry had accused her of having a boyfriend on May the 6th. On May the 9th, 2020, Suzanne's last proof of life occurred in the 2 o'clock p.m. hour when she was messaging Libler with a selfie while Barry returned to the residence. And to me, I think sitting and listening to the evidence, that is a really powerful moment. It is very powerful when they map out and show at exactly what time Barry turns onto the road and turns into the driveway, where he parks, and where Suzanne is, and she's on the phone, or she's moved over to a different app, and then suddenly there's nothing else from her phone. Right? It's very powerful. It's going to be very difficult, I think, for a jury to ignore that. There's no other explanation. Realistically, there just isn't. Suzanne did not respond to Libler's return message, which occurred at 2:44 and then again at 2:46. Barry admitted to running around the property with a gun. Remember, he said they say, were you chasing Suzanne around, right? They show his phone. It looks like cell drift to me, but apparently Barry doesn't know anything about that. They show it and they say, you were moving around. He said, oh, yeah. I was probably shooting chipmunks. Now, I have a question for you guys. If the cops come to your house and you've been like laying in your backyard sunbathing or sitting in your truck checking text messages, and the cops show up and they give you a map and it says, look, here's your cell signal. It shows that you were running all the way around your house. Were you chasing your child or your dog or whatever? Wouldn't you say no if you knew that you were not moving? It's highly suspect that he made up a lie like, oh, yeah, I was shooting chipmunks. 1 minute. All right, sorry about that. Make sure I got my sound right. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so that's very if you take a minute to think about it, it's very strange that, he says, "Oh yeah, I was running around, running after chipmunks." Well, are you really sure you're running around after chipmunks? That just is a little bit silly, correct? All right. Welcome everybody. I kind of got started without checking the chat. Hi BBT, how are you? Hey Kathy R, Wild Iris, Karen Holland, Cinnamon, hot, hot, hot. How are you doing? Hey T, please. Hey Elizabeth Gregory, we meet again. Hey Sandra, Dorothy, good to have you. Hi Charlie Faith. Hello AP Powder Puff. We see each other again. Melissa, welcome. Hey River Queen. Bling is a new black. Hey. All right, I think I got everybody, did I? I hope I didn't miss anybody. If I missed you, it's because Karen Gillette, welcome. All right. I want to know why his daughters are so obsessed with him. It seems unnatural, especially given what he did to the mother. Well, so we can talk about that for just a second. Hi, Justice for Summer. Welcome. Good to have you. Hey, Blink. And Real Angel, welcome back. Thank you for being here. So about the daughters, okay, I know that this is I know it's kind of it's either a confusing part of this or even infuriating, perhaps. But let's be very, very clear. These girls grew up in a family that was really tightly knit. For all intent purposes, they grew up in the American dream. It was an affluent family, not only with parents but also the grandparents. They were in a multi-generational town, meaning their grandparents lived there, their aunts or uncles or cousins. They were tightly connected, both sides of the family. Big church going family, so they had this large community presence. They had this very strong identity as being in this core group of people. Okay. And this is where Suzanne grew up, and Barry grew up. This was from the time they came into the world, this was it. So Barry and the older daughter, Mallory, thank you, Cinnamon. You are a sweetheart. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So Barry and the older Mallory was sort of like the son that Barry never had, right? She shares his love of the outdoor. So they go hunting together, and they would go on these trips to Colorado and Arizona, go hunting and whatnot. And so eventually that led her to applying for college in Colorado. She got in and then she left. I I don't really I haven't really been able to piece together everything that happened. There must have been extraordinary pressure on Barry or the family as a whole to leave Indiana, but we don't know what that pressure is. Okay? I mean, some of us have a theory. Now then, I think it is now Suzanne's world had been turned upside down. Um, she had lost her grandmother and her mother. She got another diagnosis. Um, and Barry he was in the process of basically dismantling his business. He was just dealing with so much anger. The stories that have been told about him on the work site are pretty, frightening. He really should have gotten some help. But anyway, for whatever reason, maybe they just decided that they could start a new life in Colorado, and the change would be good for the family. Maybe that is it. We don't really know. We don't know what, but it was a pretty extraordinary thing for them to leave the property that they had. They didn't sell it. It was still there. They did pretty much just like throw stuff into a bag and run off. The place they bought, was a place that they went to as a B&B and fell in love with it, and it was bought fairly quickly. They paid a great deal of cash for it. Um, I think put $500,000 into it, cash. So who knows what was driving this, but I do think that they were at one of those critical transitions in life, right? We all have them. We've all gone through it. Some of us are going through it right now. And I think they just went through this, especially Suzanne, went through this big transition where she had lost her mom and her grandmother. She got another diagnosis. Her older daughter left and went to college. Barry was sort of out of it, angry, messing up contracts, and there were lots of court business type of suing and court cases, and it was just it just seemed like it was really stressful and chaotic. They ultimately made the decision, they picked up, and the other thing that I say it must have been extraordinary is because Macy was still in high school, and she was a very popular young woman, so it must have been very difficult for her to leave, but she did. And by all intent purposes, she appeared to make that move to Colorado, moved right into her new high school, and got busy making friends, and really of all the family, she seems to be the one that is really doing the best of the whole group. Um, hey, Kay. Oh, I cannot see. Ramsey Lama, Iris Eytan, two paralegals are all about to get size 12 where the sun don't shine. Be careful, AK. Hey, Quintessence, how are you? Be careful, AK. I'm serious. Okay. Take a deep breath before you do anything. Okay. All right. So, so getting back to what's going on with the daughters. So they go to this beautiful place, and I'm going to tell you, AK can tell you that literally their house, the location of the home, I am telling you, it is the most beautiful location I've ever seen. I'm talking about with a house sitting on it. Absolutely gorgeous. Rivals even some of the houses that I saw like in the Alps in France. Absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. It is very remote. You are in the wild. I have another person that said, no, no, the houses are close together. They're in a subdivision. Okay, but this is not a subdivision like you would expect. You can't see your neighbors. The road is very windy. The houses are fairly far apart. Lots of trees. There's tons of wildlife everywhere. When you are at Barry Morphew's old house, you feel like you're the only house on the mountain, and you can see all the way across a holler all the way like to the other side of the mountain. It is absolutely gorgeous, and it is absolutely isolated. The other thing about it that's very interesting to me from a crime scene perspective is that they have a beautiful river that is running like at the bottom right in front of the house, but you got to go down, I don't know, maybe 50, 30 yards, maybe 40 yards. It's very loud, or it was the couple of times that I guess I've been there 3 times. It's very loud. There's a lot of runoff from the snow. There's a lot of rocks, and so the water runs very fast. It's not particularly deep, but it's running really hard and really fast. And you wouldn't say, "Oh yeah, we can walk across that." No, 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 no. It's running fast. There's lots of rocks. You would not be able to do it. Now it's possible towards the end of the summer, I suppose. Um, most of the runoff would be done at that point, and maybe it does slow down a bit. You can go further down if you're standing in the Morphew's front yard, looking out the river. If you head to the right, and you get down, well, I guess almost to the house of repute, it does widen out, and there's far fewer rocks, and then it slows down, and you could definitely cross there. But right there where the bicycle was found, right down in front of their house, I just can't imagine that anybody would try to walk through it. Not the times I've seen it. I've seen it 3 times, and I don't know, it just I can't see that you could do it without it wiping your feet out from underneath you. I don't know. AK's here. AK, can you walk across that river right in front of their house? I wouldn't have thought so, right? Hey, holy cats. How are you? Is AK? I've been in the water at high drain and low drain. It's pretty hard. It's pretty fast there, right? And it's loud. So if you're thinking about a crime scene, it'd be hard to believe anybody might hear somebody yelling. I've been in there in the past 2 weeks. Wow. Do you want to come up and talk about that, AK? Hey, Rosebuds, how are you? Welcome. I'm waiting to see if AK wants to tell us about his trials and tribulations. He's frustrated. With who? With Judge Big Drama Llama. He is a trip. Um, Exhausted trying to keep up with all the craziness in the news. It is so crazy, holy cats. It is so crazy. I was foolish enough. Um, Less I say best right now. I know, AK, it is, but listen, I know it's bad. It's crazy town. It is crazy town. I don't know what they're doing there. I don't know. I was watching the Chad Daybell hearing, and I thought, here's the problem right here with the whole Colorado keeping cameras out of the courtroom, and now you got crazy llama that won't even let our journalists have a phone to tweet. The problem is that nobody knows what the truth is. But like with the Chad Daybell stuff, everybody goes and listens to the hearing. Everybody hears what actually takes place, and then there's no drama afterwards. Everybody knows the truth. But this crap that's going on with the Barry Morphew case, it's like they're intentionally turning the light off. Like they're intentionally wanting there to be a lack of faith in the process. And I don't know if it's Colorado as a whole. They did that with the whole Kelsey. Oh, that wasn't her name. What was the woman's name that I didn't follow the case? Patrick Frazee. They did that with his case. He they they said you couldn't even talk about it if you were on the courthouse property. There's something about Colorado that they don't like the cameras in the courtroom. And then let's see, AK says, I'm suing. How will a defense attorney try a case with a protection order against them from a witness? Listen to me, AK. That bullshit, and y'all excuse my language, okay? It'd be like a drunk sailor for a minute or two, and then I'll get it out. That bullshit, you're on the witness list, and you didn't do a damn thing wrong, and yet the defense private investigator and the defense attorneys all together, they're the ones that said, oh, we've discovered the WebEx has been hacked. Bullshit lie, was not hacked. Oh, we've discovered that someone is streaming the hearing on YouTube. That was a lie, never happened. And then the defense said, "Oh, judge, our special investigator knows who did it. We have found out for the court who hacked WebEx and who is streaming it. Oh, it's AK." That was a bullshit lie. So think about this not in terms of it being AK and being our friend and all that. Think about it from the position of the court. If you're the prosecutor, what if you need to call AK as a witness? What if AK possibly found some form of important information or evidence and it may need to be admitted into evidence? That means he's going to have to get called to the stand. What are you going to do then? Because the defense has just in cooperation with the damn judge, the defense has just become judge, jury, and executioner on AK as a material witness. Oh no, we should not believe anything AK says because he hacked the WebEx and then he streamed it on YouTube and then he said F you to the judge because he didn't do any of those things. It was a figment of the imagination of the defense team. Literally, not another person in the courtroom looked at this supposed web hacking, streaming debacle and said, "Oh, well, we found it," or "Here it is," or "Here's who some people might do." Nobody. It came out of the defense group. It was supposedly investigated by the defense group. And then they magically learned and figured out that it was AK from the defense group. You absolutely should be suing AK 100%. And I can't, I would love to know what Linda Stanley thinks about the debacle. I've spoken with the chief admin for the judiciary of Colorado. Stuff is about to crack. Good. Because that was absolutely interfering with the prosecution of a case, of a murder trial. You are on the witness list. Absolutely. Won't happen with the defense protection order. Llama is getting judicially reviewed. Well, okay, I'm going to be quiet now. I am very glad that you reached out to somebody at the state level, AK. When that happened, I couldn't believe what I was watching. It was like it was like watching a mafia movie on television. It was so blatant. I was like, "Oh my God, they have just destroyed his credibility. He did absolutely nothing, and they just destroyed his credibility. How will he ever be a witness if the prosecution needs him?" So good for you. Good for you. You're doing absolutely the right thing. 100%. The main judiciary IT person told me 100% it's BS. WebEx is used by the US military to communicate. No, it didn't. If anything, didn't Llama say that he didn't really know how to use WebEx? Maybe he accidentally let somebody get in that shouldn't have been in. I have ACLU and a few other groups assisting. Good for you. Very good. Very good. It was unbelievable to watch it happen. It was just what I couldn't understand is why Judge Lama didn't say, "Hey, anybody else besides the defense want to give some information?" Like, what can I don't think I should really accept all of this coming from the defense because Mr. AK is a potential witness, but he didn't. He just took it all. It was it's the damnest thing I ever saw. But you know what, AK? That kind of answers the question, why don't they want anybody reporting from inside the courtroom? Doesn't it? It because how are you going to get away with bullshit like that if there are reporters in there that are keeping a really accurate minute by minute record of what's happening? Yeah, absolutely. So good for you. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. It's terrible what they did. Terrible. But what did I say, AK? I did the video on those two women, Eytan and Nielsen. They are scrappy and they are unprincipled and nothing is beneath them, but they're very good. That's they will do anything in order to win their case. So you got to be ready for anything. Oh, what was that case where the woman that was, they ultimately said, first they said it was suicide and then they charged the guy with murder, and then Nielsen got him off from the murder charge. They literally took the bedroom furniture and set it up with the proper like measurements, and then they had the guy stand on top of the chest of drawers to prove that that would have had to have been the setup for the angle of the bullet, right? Well, that's bullshit. There's a 10 million different ways to get that trajectory, but the damage was done. At that point, the damage was done and it was over, you know? So you got to be ready for them. That little game they played with the whole hacking the WebEx, you got to be they're going to keep doing it. I said that this case for them, they're going to make sure that they try and do everything before the case to get every bit of the evidence thrown out before it ever starts. Because once it starts, it's done then. When people hear the evidence, even though it's not smoking gun, it is the type of circumstantial evidence that doesn't leave anything to the imagination. You know damn well that what time Barry arrives home, minutes before he arrives home, she's almost, she's sort of inviting Libler to some fun talk. And then suddenly there's nothing else. Suddenly, 4 days after she says, I want out, she's set up, bank accounts. She's leaving. She's done. You can't ignore that. You cannot ignore that. You just can't. All of his lies that they caught him in, you can't ignore that. Admitting, saying, "Oh, I was running around my house shooting chipmunks." I don't know. That's crazy. So yeah. All right. And Real Angel Girl says, AK, thank you for being a voice for sweet Suzanne. Find Suzanne, and the defense has no clue. Eytan likes white wine. Well, Barry sent the last message from her phone. That's what I think, AK. I'm not even sure. Well, hey, Kel, how are you? Hey, Lit Lola, if they get to hear the evidence. Yeah, that's the big problem with the way that this is going. And it definitely looks like Llama's just going to sit back and let it happen. It's crazy. But we got 1,900 and something signatures on the petition. So y'all have to go sign the petition. And then we'll wait and see what happens with AK, because what they did to AK, it was unprincipled, but worse than that, it was absolutely interfering with the prosecution of a murder trial. Absolutely interference. No doubt in my mind. And you think to yourself, if they're so slick, if they're so smart, why didn't they have a plant in the courtroom doing it? Why did they have their own, investigator say, oh, we found out who did it? It's crazy. But even I've had a lot of people say, but why won't he allow like the reporters in the courtroom with their computers or with their phone? If they're not recording it, then why would he care? Well, here's why. Because if you've got Lauren Scharf in the courtroom and she's proven that she is highly competent to give the world a blow by blow account of what's being said and done, and you've got it almost to the minute, right? Maybe a couple of minutes pass, but she keeps you pretty close up to date. That is a really dependable record being created. But if the judge says no, we're not gonna let you use any kind of electronics at all in the courtroom, none, and you're forcing your reporters to only come out like every 4, 5, 6 hours when there's a lunch break, and then again at the end of the day. If they're only able to come out and give a report a couple of times a day, then there's delay between what they heard and when they report it. And so if you're trying to prove something that happened in the court, it can be called into question because you had a 5-hour delay. But if somebody is there with a phone or they've got their computer and they can type along with the conversation, you're making a record of the court proceedings. So they're playing terrible games. They're playing terrible games. I know stuff they did from their own camp. Oh, well, that's what I said, AK. I looked into um Eaton is really bad in terms of being using contrived types of situations. But they're both. She creates chaos, okay? And then Drew presents as this really calm and rational person. And when she talks, she says that so Iris Eytan comes in and she just gets everybody overwhelmed and confused, even the judge. Patrick Murphy stopped the proceedings 2 times and said, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I'm confused. Well, that's because Miss Iris Eytan wanted you confused. So the way she speaks and the way she does her questioning, it gets everybody confused, and they're thinking, what I miss? I don't know what you're talking about. And after everybody is freaked out and upset, and I'm talking about she's yelling. There's people that get so upset that they're arguing and yelling. Once that happens, the judge is upset, the prosecution's upset. Once all that happens and there's chaos, then it's Drew's turn to come in. And when she talks, here's the kind of thing she says. Judge, I know that this looks a little bit out of hand, but let me help you. Here's what it means. And then she tells the court exactly what she wants them to think. It's very effective. It's also quite, psychologically contrived. They know they're doing it, right? It's hard to know, Sandra. It's so hard to know. Oh, she talks in circles. She talks up one side, down the other. She intentionally provides inaccurate information. It's a circus. It's unbelievable, really. But that's their signature. That's what they do, regardless of what the case is. She creates chaos, and then it's Nielsen comes back and takes control of everybody and is very soothing and very calm when she talks, and she basically tells people what to believe, and it's highly effective. Anyway, AK, I'm glad you got some help. Honestly, it was atrocious what happened, and I would hope that the prosecution reached out to you. but because that's their case that they're screwing with. Exactly, Grandma. 100%. Yes. I'm gonna tell you, I don't think Barry understands half of what's going on in the courtroom. He looked to me, he just looks sort of zoned out. He doesn't care. I think he's got 100% faith in his attorneys, and he doesn't even hardly really pay attention, I don't think. Just a wink as I got off the stand from the prosecution. Good deal. Good. Okay. Wow. No, it's crazy. I'm telling you, this is the craziest case. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, like the good cop, bad cop routine, except it's the good cop, I mean, good attorney, bad attorney type thing. But to watch it in action was really, I think it would. I don't know why. That's just dumb of me because I watched every bit of the Jodi Arias case when it was going on. I watched a little bit of the O.J. Simpson stuff, but I was not very old and didn't really understand much about that. But I just being in the courtroom and watching Eaton create chaos. I couldn't figure out if it was like a personal vendetta with the detectives or with the prosecution. The prosecution was more confused than anybody else in the room. Ask BZ Mama. She was there. It between the prosecution getting confused and the judge being confused, Iris, it's insane to listen to her. The way she controls the room. It is crazy. And then when she has finally got everybody all freaked out and you think to yourself, damn, she's about to get in big trouble, she has crossed that line. Then she sits down and then Drew takes over and it's just like the soothing mom has come in and calms everybody down and then tells them this is what you're supposed to believe. And it's very effective. It's very effective. So I saw it during the preliminary hearing, and I didn't know what to make of it at the time. I thought it was pretty. I thought it was pretty shocking for a preliminary hearing, and then when I got into research in the background of Eaton and Nielsen, even their interviews that they did, they got some awards and whatnot, and they had some magazines that came and interviewed them. Even when they did their interviews, it's this game that they play that as a team that Eaton turns up the heat and creates a lot of energy, a lot of confusion, and then Drew comes in and takes control. And people are glad to let her take control because everything has gotten so nuts with Eaton doing what she does. It's very interesting. So, all right, why is the prosecution so passive? Okay, let me get back to the kids, to the daughters, and then we'll move on. AK, I'm not sure if you see Brent Montgomery is asking for your email. You may want to go over to Twitter and maybe exchange email in a private setting instead of doing it outright um, on the channel. But you can put your email in if you want to, but just, it's up to you how you want to do it. Okay. Um, so with all that being said about the background and history, and that the girls grew up in a really affluent home that was really, really, really grounded in their community. They had their identity was commanded by their part in this really strong family structure, multi-generation structure. And then all of a sudden, within a year and a half time, everything that they had known changed. And they found themselves in Colorado. And I think it is very, very revealing that within a month of being in Colorado, Suzanne is reaching out to a high school crush. Barry's gone. He's being Jeremiah Johnson, Grizzly Adams. He's living his dream. Macy has gone in and become the social butterfly that she is, making friends, living her best life. And Mallory is in college. So there sat Suzanne in this, mini McMansion in the most beautiful location that I've ever seen for a house site. And when she got lonely, she reached out to someone from childhood. I think you'd be foolish to overlook the significance of that. But she reached out, he responded, and I say shame on him. I say shame on her too. I get the situation she was in. I wish that she could have found the courage and the strength to get away from him much sooner. But that SOB has 6 kids. I'm talking about little kids up to one older kid who is publicly visible. And that's all I'm going to say. I can't imagine what his oldest daughter went through when this all came out. But if she would never speak to him again, I wouldn't blame her. So I don't think there's been enough attention on his responsibility in all this either, But anyway, so Suzanne reaches out and then it just went to hell in a handbasket so quickly. Now then, for the girls, the older one she is like Pete and repeat with Barry. They love to hunt. They love the outdoors. She loves everything that Barry loves. Okay, so they're best buddies. She's the son that Barry never had. All right, so she was not aligned with Suzanne. She was aligned with Barry, and that was information that came from Barry's mom that she is Barry's buddy. Macy was aligned with Suzanne. Macy and Suzanne were far more alike, and that was where the real attachment was between Macy and Suzanne. You've got to remember that when Mallory left to go to college, the marriage was still intact. The marriage was still together. Suzanne was still trying to make this thing work. Barry had gone all crazy, but Suzanne was still trying. By the time that they moved to Colorado and Suzanne was lonely enough that she reached out to Libler, they began a relationship. And then once she began to feel valued again, then she pulled the rest of the way out of the marriage emotionally, right? Which then set Barry up to him feeling like he was losing control of things. And so he got kind of desperate to hold it all together. That's where all this fighting started. Macy is living in the home when the marriage falls to pieces. She saw what happened. Mallory didn't see it, but Macy did see it. She lived it. So with all of those facts in place, and suddenly now mom disappears. Dad is telling you that mom has run off to meet her lover, right? The older sister is aligned with dad, telling you, you're stupid if you believe that dad would ever hurt mom. Dad loves us. Don't you remember? You always favored mom over dad. How dare you? Right? The relationship between Suzanne and the girls, and Suzanne's part of the family, Andy and the sister and the dad and everybody, that had been destroyed by Barry saying, "Hey, old man, do you mind giving us, some cash, like $100,000 to buy a McMansion?" So they were isolated from the family by Barry's actions. So what do you really let's be open, let's keep our heart open and warm and think about Macy from a position of rational thought. What exactly do you want Macy to do? Her mother is gone and hasn't been heard from for 600 days or more. She's not had any contact with her maternal aunts and uncles. Her grandparents have passed away. She's in a new area. All of her childhood friends are back in Indiana, so she's in Colorado. What do you want her to do? She is a kid. She just graduated high school. Her mom is missing. She's grieving. She's terrified for her mother. What do you want her to do? She the support that she has right now is her grandmother, Barry's mom, her grandmother, Barry's sisters, Barry's brother, her uncles, the nephews. What do you want her to do? You want her to turn her back on the only family that she has? That I don't think that's realistic. I don't. And I'm going to say this, and I absolutely mean it 100%. But for the grace of God, if I were in the same situation as Macy, I would probably do exactly what she's doing. Now, I'll tell you what I would not do. I would never lie on the stand. Never lie. Never, ever, ever. If they put her on the stand, she's going to tell the truth about what she saw in that home. And it may be that it's going to be, yeah, my dad was a jackass, but it may also be that he wasn't. But here's what I really don't believe that given her age, the way she grew up, her personality, if theoretically, if you look at the big 5-factor model of personality, she does seem like she will not be capable of lying on the stand. I don't think I really think that whatever she says, and she may say stuff that we don't like. She may say stuff we don't agree with, but I'm telling you right now, she's not going to be the one that's going to lie up on the stand. It's not her style, her comfort zone. So y'all might as well get ready. If they put her on the stand, you've got to have a faith in the truth, and what she says we have to respect, right? So we got to be very careful about being harsh on these two girls. They are walking a path. They're walking a path that very few have ever had to face. Very few. So let's be a bit more forgiving and understanding. Maybe it's terrible. Yeah, we never even we always think about Mallory and Macy, but we rarely think about the 6 kids, the littler side of this. This affair hurt a lot of people. And then when you add on top of the affair that, Barry allegedly did something that caused her demise, and I'm telling you, the circumstantial evidence is very strong. This has been a disaster. This has been a disaster for so many people. Shirley, Barry's mom, she didn't want to spend her old age going to court thinking about murder charges. She didn't want that in her old age. There's not anybody in this family that comes out of this thing in the right way. There's not going to be a right way. No matter how it ends, it's going to end rough. So we do need to be, we need to just trust the process, and whatever unfolds for those two girls, as long as they come out safe and protected, then that's what matters, right? That there's no reason to sacrifice anybody else. They've already lost their mom. We just need to be really, 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 really um, forgiving and prayerful where Macy and Mallory are concerned. I believe that in my heart. And maybe Mallory hadn't always made um, maybe her alliance with Barry, it may come out in court. There may be some things, but you can't fault her for that. There's a lot of daddy's girls that love to go hunting or ride horses, and it's, you can't forget they're human beings. There's no perfection in this world. There's just not. We got to be really careful about being judgmental, because they, especially Macy, of both of those girls, Macy is the one that could really use prayers and positive feelings sent her way. um I often hope that she will find the courage to reach out to Andy and Suzanne's sister. I can't remember her name right now. um I wish that she could find the courage to reach out to them. I think it would help her an awful lot if she could rekindle a relationship with her mother's side of the family. All right. So now then, so it's very powerful circumstantial evidence that at 2 o'clock there's a message sent to Libler, basically inviting him, to do dirty talk or whatever. And then there's no they're supposed to be getting on a different app, and she says, I'm going to get on there, sends a selfie. And then at 2:44 and 2:46, Libler, sends a response, and there's never any other response. It's over. The 2 o'clock last communication, 2:44 and 2:46, Libler sends back a message, and listen to this, at 2:47. So the last message from Libler, 2:46. It's almost like you can imagine Barry sitting there with Suzanne's phone in his hand, waiting, and he gets that final message from Libler, and he takes his own phone out and he puts it on airplane mode at 2:47. At that point, then he can't really be tracked by his GPS on the phone. But I think he forgot about his truck telematics, and he did have an upgraded package on his truck. So it's very interesting, the computer information on the truck. So there's already some very powerful circumstantial evidence already laid out. Okay. And then we get to the telematics, and this to me is really hard to ignore. So Barry got little man syndrome, and he's got big bulging muscles on his 5'2" frame. No, I don't think he's 5'2", but y'all know what I mean. And he drives a big old F-350, so it makes lots of noise and makes him feel like a big, tough, strong guy, right? So his truck had an upgraded telematics program on it where the activity of his cell phone and everything would all be, whether he connected through his truck or how he connected. And the telematics on the truck would even record which door opened and when it closed, which window went down and which window went up. I mean, it's fairly specific. It's very interesting to read it. And then they also used his cell phone activity and sort of triangulated all of this information together to map out and get a fairly good idea of the unusual behaviors and actions that he took. In multiple interviews, they used the information to confirm, even though he had turned his telephone to airplane mode, They confirmed that at 2:47 p.m. until 5:37 a.m. on May the 10th, he took steps to dispose of evidence of Suzanne's disappearance and death. He created a false alibi for himself by staging a crime scene. And then later, following the presentation of evidence by FBI agents to Barry during the accounting, he had changed critical details about his activities at the 2 o'clock hour on May the 9th. That was the last communication from Suzanne's phone to match the evidence. So he gave his story. They said, "You're a liar, Barry. Here's the evidence." And then he changed his story to match the evidence. And they knew he was going to do that, so they caught him, January 2021, Barry admitted to, this is crazy, chasing chipmunks with a gun around the house while, what? Suzanne is laying in the yard sunbathing. That didn't happen. He also said that he was shooting a deer with a tranquilizer dart. And that's after they said, "Why was there a tranquilizer dart needle cap in your dryer?" He disposed of the tranquilizer solution during his trip to Broomfield. And I think that's what he threw away at the McDonald's. He followed supposedly a bull elk down Highway 50 at the 4 a.m. hour on May 10th to explain why his truck would be heading west, which was incidentally the location of the helmet. And then finally turned it around on April 22nd and told the FBI that, when he looks at all this evidence, he admits it makes him look guilty. But God allowed these things to happen. It's a very strong case. Barry's involvement in Suzanne's disappearance and death can be organized into the initial scene with the interviews, and then Suzanne's affair and her attempts to leave him, Barry's early statements to CBI May through June 2020, the evidence recovered by law enforcement, the witness statements, and then Barry's statements to the FBI in 2021. So that's really critical that they have the early statements by Barry, May through June 2020, and then they compare it to Barry's statements to the FBI in 2021. And then this is where basically he changes his whole story to match the evidence that they've collected. You can totally tell he's lied about everything. All right. On May the 10th, 2020, at approximately 5:58 p.m., Deputy Damon Brown was notified by dispatch to contact Scott Ritter. That was the wrong person. It's actually, his name is Martin. To contact Martin Ritter by phone regarding a possible missing person who would also have cancer. Dispatch further informed that the missing person is Suzanne Morphew, and her husband Barry is driving back from Denver and does not have cell service. Now, this part really surprised Barry. I saw the look on his face and the change in his demeanor when this information came out in court. When he established that, no, I can't talk because I'm not going to have cell phone. And then they proved through a photograph that Barry was lying. He wasn't even in his truck. He was still in the hotel room. And he got really nervous. His body language, he didn't like it. He was whispering to the investigator. And, that was one of those points that he was a bit surprised. Now, Martin Ritter called Deputy Brown and said, or answered Deputy Brown and said that he had talked to Suzanne's daughter earlier in the day. It was Mallory that he had spoken to. In Mallory, that day on the 10th, Mallory did a lot of calling to Dad and whatnot. So you could see that she's the older daughter, kind of more in control. She explained to Martin that she was concerned because she had tried to reach Suzanne both by telephone and text. They were trying to tell, Suzanne Happy Mother's Day and whatnot, and that she and Macy were on this trip, and so they were not home. So Jean Ritter, who was actually Suzanne's really good friend, she said, well, I'll go up to the residence and see what's going on. She did not find Suzanne, and so Martin then called Barry again and said, we don't see her. Martin said that Barry told him that he had tried to reach Suzanne and couldn't get in touch with her. Martin told Barry he did not locate Suzanne at the residence, nor could he locate her after searching the immediate area. And that was when Barry told Martin to call 911. The question I've always had is, well, why didn't Barry call 911? That seems odd to me that Barry instructs someone else to do that call. I mean, I don't know why he didn't make the call himself. And then that's when he told Martin, well, I'm on my way home from Denver. And he really wasn't. Martin estimated to Deputy Brown that Suzanne went missing between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. on that same morning. And Barry lied and said that Suzanne went bicycle riding every morning. In fact, the other people in her life said that no, when she rode her bicycle, it was in the afternoons. That was wasn't even in question. She wasn't really a morning person. She kind of started kind of slow. She drank coffee, she wasn't one of those to jump up, put her workout clothes on and do a early sunrise kind of bicycle ride. Deputy Brown attempted to contact Barry at 6:05, did not get in touch with him. He tried again at 7:10 and Barry answered. Barry stated that the last time he saw his wife was at the residence at 5 a.m. on May the 10th, and that was when he got it to leave to go to Denver for his non-existent job. Suzanne was still sleeping like a lump under the covers, snoring. But Barry said, I did not speak with her. Barry advised Deputy Brown that Suzanne had recently developed an interest in mountain biking and that she went mountain biking daily. Barry advised that when Suzanne would bike, she would wear a turquoise-colored bicycle helmet and a windbreaker jacket. There was no other description given for the windbreaker. He described that Suzanne also had an iPhone, which she would take with her on her biking. Barry added that Suzanne was going through cancer treatments, and he provided Deputy Brown with her phone number. Brown and Mullinax drove to the Morphew residence and turned onto Highway 225 from Highway 50. It was about 7:30 p.m. So they got there very, very quickly. They drove slowly, looking along the steep incline for the bicycle. As Deputy Brown turned the corner, he saw the mountain bike. I think I have a video that shows that. I'll try to put it up. It would be easy to see the bicycle from. You got to imagine if you're leaving the Morphew residence, you're going to be going straight. You're going to cross over the little river, and then you're going to turn right. It makes like a dog leg to the right. If you're on that side right before you turn right and you look over to your right, you can easily see the bicycle. But once you make that right turn and you're headed up to get on Highway 50, there's no way in hell that you would see the bicycle. So if you're coming in from the main road, Highway 50, and you're on the high part where you'd never see the bicycle, and then you turn left and you go over the little bridge, most people would not see the bicycle because by the time you make that turn, the bicycle would be back behind your left shoulder. So, they were intently looking down into the woods, and that's how they ended up, seeing it. But of all the places that allegedly Barry could have thrown the bicycle or planted the bicycle, that was it, because no one could see him or whomever did it. No one could see it. No one. He was perfectly protected. The vegetation around the bicycle was not flattened in the area where there may have been a human body. There was no blood around the bicycle. There was no damage to the bike, but in a really weird kind of way, the bicycle handles were turned like 3 full rotations and got the bike hydraulics all messed up, almost like it was planted, done intentionally. Due to the steepness of the incline, the bike should have been damaged if an accident had occurred. When Brown moved the bike up to the path, he noticed the front brake pad was frozen and the handlebars were completely turned to the left, causing the brake cables to wrap around the bike frame, and I believe it was 3 times. Deputy Brown and Molinax examined the dirt shoulder of County Road 225 above the area where the bike was recorded, and there were no braking marks or skid marks from a bicycle or any type of a collision. In a separate interview, Martin Ritter told the FBI that Barry said on the telephone that he was at a work site with workers present. I'm going to assume that he was kind of saying, no, I can't leave right now. I'm in Denver working. So he said he was at a work site with workers present. When he received the call from Martin, Barry told CBI agents several times that he was at the Via Vara work site in Broomfield. He drove to the hotel to drop his tools off for workers. The Broomfield video disproved these assertions by Barry. And he didn't like it when they caught him. He was very uncomfortable. Deputy Brown examined the front rim of the bike tire and observed no damage to rims or spokes, which he expected to see if the brake had locked. The weight of the rider would have been going head first over the edge. And can I just say, if you get a cut or an abrasion on your forehead or the top of your head, that is a highly vascularized area of your body. You bleed like a stuck hog. There would have been blood everywhere. When a mountain lion attacks, they obviously go for the neck and the head of the animal. So if she, like Barry was saying, if she had been attacked by a mountain lion or a bear, same thing. The amount of blood that would have been there, it wouldn't have been a few drops. If you even get the slightest small cut on your forehead, it looks like the night of the living dead. It looks like you're bleeding to death. So there's no question. It was no mountain lion. It was nothing like that. Brown said, after all these observations, I started to question if something criminal had occurred, and as it looked like the bike was purposefully thrown in the location. And that was where now we watch the video, we see Miles and his father, Michael Harvey, along with the little sister, and they all arrived. Now, Miles is there first. They had been uptown doing something. The dad said, you better go check, see what's going on. And then later on, he shows up to sort of say, hey, what's going on? What really stands out to me with Miles and his dad, Miles is frightened. And I don't mean frightened like a little girl frightened. I mean, he's nervous. And he's a smart kid. So he's got a good handle on what's going on. He's been with Macy. She's been talking. In fact, things got so bad at home with Barry and Suzanne that she actually went and stayed with the Harvey family for a short time to get some relief from the crap that was going on at the Morphew house. So Miles was aware, right? And so he's wanting to help. I mean, he was a wealth of information. In fact, it was I think it is really, really important that Miles said, her car is in the garage. And when she goes bicycling, she puts her bicycle into her car, drives to the trailhead of wherever she's going to be riding, and then unloads the bicycle and goes. And he said, I don't think she would really ride around here. And the hills, I promise you, Their house is up on the high side of the mountain. You're driving like you would ski, crossways across the mountain. You're kind of doing like a hairpin kind of road up to where the house is. I can't imagine trying to bicycle that. Going down, you'd be going way too fast in some areas. And then how the hell are you going to get back up? Because again, the incline, was terrible. She was fairly new to the mountain biking, so she didn't have a lot of skill. The conditioning probably wasn't what it really should have been to ride that particular area. And Miles pretty much was saying, no, I don't think, she might go down by Fooses Creek. But that's not what she does. She puts the bicycle in her car and goes to the trails where she can ride, and then unloads and goes for the ride. So he's on it. He gets it. He knows. He already knows that there's something off. The dad, Michael, he walks up and he's excited. He's like, hey, they found her. They got her bicycle. And then you hear the cop and he says, well, they didn't find her. They found the bicycle. And you can literally watch him in real time. And it takes less than 90 seconds for the recognition to come into his eyes. And he says a cuss word as he realizes there's been some funny business. You can see it. So it's really powerful to watch them being friends of the family, that even Miles and Michael seem to know allegedly maybe Barry did something bad to Suzanne in that just in that moment. It's very, very powerful to see. Let's see. So they arrive at the residence. They're searching the immediate area. There is no sign of forced entry on the doors or windows. Brown walks through the Morphew residence and observed that the residence is very orderly and well kept. In fact, I said it looks like you could take photographs and put it in House Beautiful. She was an immaculate housekeeper, except for Mallory's bedroom. And just like in the Chris Watts case, Mallory's bedroom, in this otherwise perfectly maintained, well-decorated home, in Mallory's bedroom, the sheets are completely stripped off the bed. Some of the stuff is laying on the floor, and some of it ends up in the dryer. What is wrong with this picture? Right? So right there, there's something wrong. Deputy Brown observed the master bedroom, and only thing that was out of order in the master bedroom, the bed was made up, everything was nice and tidy and pretty like it needed to be, except they found a .22 caliber round of ammunition, an unfired bullet, on the floor next to Suzanne's side of the bed. He then looked under the bed to inquire where the ammunition may have come from, and observed what appeared to be a rifle storage case. In the main floor, Deputy Brown observed what appeared to be reddish-brown substance that was smeared midway on the side of the wall, but it turned out it was not blood. Brown observed a laptop computer and documents scattered near the laptop computer. 3-car garage area, Deputy Brown discovered 2 white SUV vehicles, later identified as Suzanne's personal vehicle and I believe it Macy's vehicle. At the time of Suzanne's disappearance, Macy and Mallory were on a road trip, and therefore her vehicle was parked in the garage. He also observed that there were home surveillance cameras mounted on the exterior of the residence. Deputy Brown described that the placement of the mounted exterior cameras are ideal for viewing any person or activity coming onto or leaving the Morphew property. At 9:37 p.m. that night, that's Mother's Day night, the commander of Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, Avila, brought Barry into the house and advised Deputy Brown that they were looking for a piece of clothing from the residence that would help the search dogs locate Suzanne's scent. Barry walked them to the master bedroom and pointed to clothing that was on the floor in the closet. Again, I have a hard time with this. Suzanne was a fastidious housekeeper, everything in its place. You're going to tell me she walks into her closet, takes off her biking shorts, and just leaves it in a pile on the floor? No way. I've known women like this. I might do that, but women like her, no. There would be a nice little basket, and that's where, clothes would go. And then before she went to bed, she would take anything that was in there and go wash it, put it in the dryer before, sleeping. They keep every bit of clothes. Everything is perfectly clean all day long. They don't let anything sit, right? So I found that to be very interesting, that her biking shorts, which is what they ultimately picked up to give to the dogs for the scent, the biking shorts were on the floor with gloves and some socks and some other stuff. I can't remember everything that was there. As if she came in and stripped down right in the middle of the closet and never picked the stuff up. I don't believe that's what happened. I think that her clothes were taken off of her and Barry dropped them there, or allegedly dropped them there. Okay. Deputy Brown observed mountain bike gloves and padded shorts in the pile, and Avila took a pair of the shorts for the scent for the dogs. Deputy Brown was walking in the driveway when DeFurio told him that there were barefoot marks inside the bucket of the bobcat. That's really significant, because here's why I say that. I want you to try to imagine a scenario where you got a man and a woman who are really unhappy in their marriage, and they're arguing about infidelity, and she's just wanting time alone so she can talk to her lover, and he's just pissed off at the world trying to keep his money all in one place. And then what could possibly go on that she is going to get up and walk over to the bucket of the bobcat and stand in the bucket? What scenario? Do you think they were playing hide and seek? No. Why were her footprints in that bucket? Very, very significant. Deputy Brown also examined and found that the cutting blade on the bucket of the bobcat appeared to be newly replaced, along with brand new nuts and bolts. Sergeant Molinax documented that he was present when Deputy Brown was speaking to Barry at approximately 7:10 p.m. on the phone. Barry said that Suzanne rides her bicycle regularly and usually leaves between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. And thank God for Miles Harvey. Right? Thank God for her sister. And the best friend, because they all said no, she would never get up and ride at 8 a.m. She was not a morning person. Suzanne was riding her bicycle in the evenings. So it's really, this is powerful evidence for people saying we don't have a body, we don't have a smoking gun. I know that, but look at how this evidence lies when you put it out in an organized way without a lot of fluff, just the facts. Now, Iris Eytan is going to bring fluff. She's going to bring chaos and confusion. But if you can keep that, if the prosecution can clean it all off and keep it really, really focused on the simple facts, there's no other explanation. Why would he say, oh, yeah, she rides regularly every day, leaves a bit between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. Why did he do that? And they got 3 more people waiting in the wings to say, no, she did not go in the morning. So it's very good. It really is good circumstantial evidence. Hold on, I need to drink of water. Hold on. All right. So Sergeant Mullinax and Deputy Brown walked down the ravine and called out for Suzanne. We're down now at the bottom of the hill where the bicycle was. Bicycle definitely looks out of place. Sergeant Mullinax, they've activated their body cameras. I really wish that they had not, pulled the bike off the hill until they had gotten some still photography, but oh well. It is what it is. And they did walk down the ravine and they are calling out for Suzanne. I've heard some people say, why weren't they calling her name? They did. But maybe you just missed that in the beginning. They walked a few hundred yards along the ravine without finding anything interesting. Mullinax asked Brown to go to the Morphew residence while he stayed with the bike. Brown contacted dispatch because they had no cell service and asked for the local hospital to check for Suzanne. And then they called back and said they could not, that nobody had seen Suzanne at the hospitals. Mullinax asked dispatch to ping the number given for Suzanne's cell phone, and the cell phone appeared to be turned off. Last known activity was at 4:23 a.m. with a general location that was 11 and a half miles west of a cell tower in Poncha Springs, Colorado. That is going to be very interesting how they account for that phone. Okay, so 11 and a half miles west of Poncha Springs. While Sergeant Mullinax was by the bicycle, Miles approached and identified himself as Suzanne's daughter's boyfriend. And he confirmed that, yes, he recognized the bicycle and it does belong to Suzanne. And they examined it. They did not find any scratches or any damage to it. At 8:42 p.m., Barry arrives on the scene in his truck by himself. Where is it? Where is it? Where's the bicycle? Where's the bicycle? Give me a hug. Okay, enough of that. Okay. 8:42, Barry arrived on scene in the truck by himself, and magically he just knew where they found the bicycle and looked at it and said, where's the bicycle? Both he and Georgie Porgy touched the handlebars of the bicycle and the seats of the bicycle, and at one point looked like they reached down and was touching one of the pedals. The sergeant yelled and said, hey, quit touching the bicycle like a small child, right? Chaffee County's officer, Sergeant Claudette Heiss Julian, contacted the same date and reported that Miles reported that Suzanne and Barry argue frequently, and hats off to Michael Harvey, who stood by his son and said, look, now's not the time. You just tell what you know and you make sure it's the truth, right? And that's awesome. It shows a lot of integrity. It's a good family, good people. Miles was asked if he noticed anything out of order in the residence. He said he thought it was strange that the bedding was off of Mallory's bed because she does not live at home. And he thought it was unusual that Suzanne's bicycle did not have damage on it if she had crashed. And then it looks like Mallory was contacted, who said that she had last spoken to Suzanne on the night of May the 9th. She had last seen Suzanne at the end of April. Oh, that must be Sheila. Or is it Melinda? Maybe it's Melinda. Let me look. Next contact stated she last talked to Suzanne on the night. That must be Melinda. She talked to her sister on the night of May the 9th. Okay. There are no electronic records of Suzanne communicating at all with anyone after 2:11 in the afternoon on May the 9th, when she sends her last message by LinkedIn to Jeff Libler. So who is it that said they spoke to her on the night of the 9th? She had last seen Suzanne at the end of April 2020. Said that she had sent a text message to Suzanne wishing her a happy Mother's Day on May the 10th, but Suzanne had not replied. She also tried calling Suzanne, but the call went directly to voicemail. At the time, she received a call from Barry asking if she contacted Suzanne. Must have been Mallory. I think it must be Mallory if we go by the phone records, right? Let me see if AK's still here. Is that Mallory? Is AK still in here? He's probably not. Is that Mallory? Does anybody know if that's who? Did Mallory claim to speak to him, to speak to Suzanne the night of the 9th? No, Carol. There was no Mother's Day gift found anywhere, and there was no Mother's Day card. You think it was Sheila, Carrie? We'll have to. Oh, see, Nancy's saying it's Mallory. I think the phone records. So why would she lie and say she talked to her the night? For Mother's Day, there were no flowers or cards for anyone. That's accurate, Angel. There was no observation visible that they were celebrating Mother's Day at all. It's terrible. Yeah, Uncle Jed. It's terrible. Very sad. Yeah, I think it was Mallory, right? So why would Mallory lie and say she talked to her mom the night of the 9th? Yeah, because see, here it says Sergeant Julian spoke with her and reported that she had last seen Suzanne on Tuesday when they left on the road trip. So it wasn't Sheila, it was Mallory. She reported exchanging text messages with Suzanne on May the 9th. And she said that Suzanne works out at the gym regularly and had recently begun mountain biking, and added that Barry has mountain biked with Suzanne a couple of times. The girls denied marital issues between their parents and described their marriage as loving. I don't think so. All right, May 11th. Sergeant Julian spoke with that's got to be Mallory. Okay, Sergeant Julian spoke with Mallory on May 11th, and Macy confirmed that Suzanne wrote in religious devotionals in a journal. When asked to describe her bedding at the Morphew house, Mallory said that her bed is always made, her sheets and her pillowcases are light blue, and that her comforter is brown and reddish. Julian spoke with Macy on May 11th and admitted that her parents argued a lot and that she feared that they would separate or divorce. She said that they were not doing well and that it was for the best that they would separate. Macy reported that Barry and Suzanne were both in an unsafe place emotionally. So, see, this statement will be admitted because this is Macy. She's living in the house. She experienced it firsthand. She'll be on the stand. And so she will own this. Macy stated, my dad are different people. My mom and dad are different people. They argue, and I mean they get in fights. I don't know. They both have just not felt safe at some point. And he added that Suzanne and Barry were not getting along and had discussed divorce. When Macy was discussing if she had ever seen any text messages on her parents' phones, she advised that she does not ever look at messages on their phones. When asked if there was a possibility that their mom may have left home because she did not feel safe, Macy said her mom would never leave her. And later, she said that if Suzanne would have left, she would have contacted her and Mallory to let them know that she was okay. Macy explained that she and her sister were heading back home on May the 10th with their friend, and there were no plans for the friend or Mallory to stay at the Morphew's house after the trip. This was actually a really important statement here, because that was the excuse that Barry gave for why Mallory's sheets were stripped off the bed. He said that Suzanne would always clean when there was going to be a house guest. But Mallory and the friend had no intention at all of staying at the Morphew home. So that blew that out of the water. In multiple interviews with the FBI in 2021, including on April 22nd, 2021, Barry denied that he and Suzanne had ever discussed divorce. The comments by Macy that she never looked at her mother's phone is a direct contradiction to Barry's repeated assertions to the CBI that he deletes his messages between him and Suzanne because his daughters always look at his phone. That's a lie. The reason he deleted those messages is because it showed that they weren't getting along. He's lying to the cops saying we had a great marriage, everything was going great. He deleted the messages to cover that up, and then when they retrieved the messages, they said, "Why'd you lie?" And they said, "Oh, well, I was trying to protect my daughters." So he's a liar. Let's see. Suzanne always carried her cell phone with her and had a charging cable on her nightstand next to her bed. Historian spoke with Jean Ritter, who confirmed that Mallory contacted her and Martin Ritter via telephone on May 10th at approximately 4 p.m. because she could not reach Suzanne. She asked them to go to the house and check on Suzanne, and Jean went to the house. She did not locate Suzanne, so she called Barry and told him. Barry asked Jean to look for Suzanne's bicycle and to call 911 if she did not locate Suzanne. So now Barry has asked Martin to call 911, and now he's asked Jean to call 911, but he himself hasn't called 911, even though he's in Denver and has great cell phone reception. After Jeannie returned home the second time, Martin called 911 to report that Suzanne was missing. Martin sent Jeannie back to the Morphew house once more to leave a few notes for Suzanne in case she returned. Now, Barry has an interview on May the 11th. So on May the 10th, that's when Suzanne goes missing. They find the bicycle. Barry drives back from Denver, and he arrives that night. Where's a bicycle? The next morning, he's got to go over and have an interview with the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office. So in the early morning hours of May the 11th, the sheriff's deputy Burgess and the affiant interviewed Barry Morphew. Barry explained that he left his residence on the 10th at approximately 5 a.m. to travel to Broomfield for a construction job where there was no way to work. He did not speak to his wife that morning. She was still asleep when he left. Oh, just like Chris Watts. Barry stated that his daughters were to return to their home on May the 10th from a camping trip. Barry said that he texted to his wife to wish her happy Mother's Day and did not get a response, possibly due to poor cell service at the house. Barry said that he tried to text her again later that morning with no response. Barry reached his daughters via text messages, and they also stated they could not reach the mother. Barry specifically provided his route of travel to Broomfield, and in all subsequent interviews with CBI, Barry never stated that he turned west on Highway 50. Barry explained that his wife's plan for May the 10th was to clean the house, get the spare bedroom ready for the two daughters coming home with a friend. Barry said that his wife rides her mountain bike every day and added that Suzanne was diagnosed with cancer twice in her life and she had beat it. Now, she was supposed to have an appointment that next Monday for a maintenance medication, but clearly she didn't make it. Barry said that he owned firearms, and all of the firearms and ammunition are stored in a locked gun safe in the garage. It should be noted that on May 11th, when law enforcement searched the Morphew residence, two firearms were located that were not in the gun safe. A high-powered rifle was located in a closet on the ground floor, and the rifle appeared to be spray painted in a camouflage pattern. The affiant could not locate a serial number. A Benelli 12-gauge shotgun was found lying against the wall in the garage, and a loaded .22 long rifle cartridge was located lying on the floor in the master bedroom near the right side of the bed. I don't think it's supposed to say cartridge. After your affiant ended the interview with Barry, he was told that law enforcement was going to seize the truck. When the residence was searched, law enforcement could not locate a charging cable for the phone. Barry's phone entered airplane mode at 4:32 a.m. He altered numerous prior accounts that stories he had said to law enforcement in order for his statement to match phone and truck evidence after the FBI agents told him the evidence on April 2021. This is when they got the story that Barry turned left on Highway 50 when leaving his house. In other words, he was going the wrong direction to Broomfield. When questioned why he would be moving away from Broomfield, he said that he saw a bull elk crossing the road. He said that he goes and he picks up the shed, the antlers that the deer family shed, and so he said he was watching to see where they were going, and then later he would walk the path and see if he could see where they had picked up antler, had shed their antlers. They showed Barry a map and asked for him to point where he had turned his truck around, and that turned out to be Garfield, Colorado. It's just a little place right up the road, 5 miles out of the way of his trip. So he didn't go a couple of hundred yards. He was supposed to have gone right. He went left, and he went 5 miles left. Incidentally, Suzanne's helmet was found that same direction that he drove, even though he didn't tell the police that he drove that way until they said, Barry, we have evidence that you drove that way. What were you doing? Then he said, oh, yeah, I remember now. Let's see. Yes, .22 round previously referenced. Okay. And then after, let's see, while they're interviewing Barry on May the 11th, they get a search warrant to search the exterior of the residence. They believe that there is blood on the apron of the garage near the east side door of the 3-car garage. It was noted by the affiant and other investigators that there was a Bobcat skid steer parked in a parking area west of the Morphew residence. Next to the skid steer, south of the skid steer, was a flatbed trailer. So somebody had taken the Bobcat off the trailer that night. The trailer was in its tilted position. The trailer bed had some loose gravel and dirt on it. The trailer did not have a jack on it, and the tongue of the trailer was lying on the ground. The skid steer was parked to the left side of the trailer. The items were positioned such that the skid steer bucket appeared to have been used to unhitch the trailer from a vehicle, most likely Barry's truck, and then set the trailer on the ground. The skid steer looked like the cutting edge of the bucket had been recently replaced. There was absolutely no wear on it. It was also noted several large bolts were lying in the skid steer bucket and on the front end of the trailer bed. Very curious, but the cops don't believe that the Bobcat was used. So it's very mysterious. Now, Suzanne's helmet. This happens on May the 13th, right? So she goes missing on the 10th. The cops are crawling all over the place the night of the 10th. Barry drives back from Denver. The 11th, he gets interviewed, and they search the outside of the house. And then the 12th is clear, and now this happens on the 13th, Suzanne's helmet. Search teams located what they believed to be the bicycle helmet Suzanne would have been wearing. Investigators located a photo of Suzanne prior to this date with Suzanne wearing the helmet. And who was it that gave them that information? The Harvey family. The little sister of Miles, pulled up the outfit, and they ended up giving it to the cops. The picture, an Instagram picture. The item was located at GPS coordinates 38.55008 by 106.2575, which is approximately 0.8 of a mile northwest of the site where the bicycle was located. It's approximately 10 meters south of Highway 50, 1.5 miles from the Morphew residence. Inside the helmet, law enforcement located a piece of paper in the top of the helmet with Suzanne's name. It had the address, Barry's number, and the girls' phone numbers. This item was collected by law enforcement and is placed in evidence. In a news story that aired on Fox 21 on 8/21/2020, Barry stated that he had an inconsistency with one-time line adding it was only because when I just didn't know the time that I did something mechanical to my Bobcat, I was confused. I just found out my wife was missing. So we're assuming that mechanical thing was putting the new blade on the Bobcat. So is he trying to hide that? Is he trying to obscure that? On May 13th, search teams were still searching the area around where Suzanne's bicycle and helmet were found, and law enforcement were driving roads in the area attempting to locate Suzanne. During this effort, law enforcement located what they believed to be fresh tire impressions, a piece of cloth with a reddish-brown unknown substance on it, and also located in the area of the cloth and the tire impressions. These tire impressions were cast on May 14th by deputies of Chaffey Sheriff's Office. As of the present date, these items appear to be unrelated to Suzanne's disappearance. It's a very messy sentence. To the present date, these items appear to be unrelated. What that means is the DNA is still out on some of this evidence. Okay, so the next part is the CBI crime scene report, and I think we are, yes, we're almost at 2 hours. I think I'm going to end this tonight. We'll do the CBI crime scene tomorrow. It is it is really it's really in depth because it's going to cover several locations. It's going to cover the truck itself, which is to me, the information about the truck, how dirty it is, the 5 trash runs. That is very powerful evidence. It's hard to wrap your head around why one man would pass up a huge trash bin right at his house. He would pass that up in favor of going to 5 out of the way trash bins to throw away a few items when the inside of his truck was a damn pigsty. And they really never did get a satisfactory type of explanation. So again, another piece of evidence, circumstantial, but very difficult to explain in a rational way, right? Very difficult. Okay. Oh, is Lauren here? I see somebody addressing Lauren Sharp. So if you're here, Lauren, welcome. It's wonderful to have you. All right. So we're at right about 2 hours. So I think I'll go ahead and end this. I really appreciate you guys being here. I really did not look at the chat while I was going through the beginning of the arrest affidavit, but I'm gonna oh, so she is here. Well, good. Yay. So Brent Montgomery said, hi, Lauren. Let's see. I was parking on the keyboard. Oh, pecking on the keyboard when you posted. The telematics, the telematics is a really powerful piece of the evidence, but it's not necessarily required for the health of the case. It really isn't. I felt when the rumor was going around about the telematics and the domestic violence information, I thought, wow, if they throw out this telematics, that's the kiss of death to the case. But when I got the arrest affidavit back out and I read through it again, I had forgotten just how concise the and how specific the circumstantial evidence is. It's going to be very hard to discount some of this. It's going to, I mean, I know Eytan and Nielsen are really good at what they do. I think it's going to be really hard. And maybe it's not in terms of the technicalities, maybe it's not a really elegant case. You know, it's not, doesn't have the evidence that, like Scott Reich wants to see, right? But you got to remember, this is going to go to a jury, and those are just people, and it's going to be fairly common people, more than likely, and they're just going to think about normal, regular, everyday life. And when they start reading this kind of stuff with no reasonable explanation by Barry, it's going to be very hard to explain it away. Very hard, right? Jules, can you pre-schedule your next live? I broke my notification bell. I'm sorry about that. So my next live we can do, I will not be able to do it tomorrow. I'll do it Friday morning. I'll do it Friday morning around, let's say, should we do it like around 11 o'clock? Does that sound good? Can you please show an overhead map showing the waterway behind Puma Path where George Davis lives in proximity to Barry Morphew and the Ritters? Yeah, I'll do that on Friday. I'll have a map out, and because also we need to see. It's pretty important to see where Barry parked his truck instead of coming and pulling into the driveway. He parked it at this little area that's a little bit like, they call it a cul-de-sac, but there's not really a lot of there's no houses there. But the location that he walked, how long it took him to get there, and then he got back so much faster. It's all highly suspect. He was already up to something. There's no doubt there were things happening, and I can't understand. That's why I'm at the point that I can't understand. Why does Mallory say that she called her mother the night before? I don't know how I missed that. It's interesting to me that Georgia Davis was on site when her bicycle was found. Yeah, well, I think a lot of people found George's presence to be interesting, but I also think there's a lot of people that have met George and that he seems to be a fairly good guy. So I don't know. He is apparently the guy who Barry said, "Oh, my buddy's done 400 tours." No, he didn't. But I mean, Barry. I think the guy. I think he was in the military and he was very good at what he did. But I think Barry just misunderstood. He used the wrong term, right? He didn't do 400 tours. He probably did 400 missions or X. What do they call it? I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway. Okay, everybody, I'm going to put an end to this now. We're really and truly at 2 hours, 2 hours and 2 minutes. Y'all are awesome. I appreciate you so much. The next live is going to have to be Friday morning at 11 o'clock, and I will pre-schedule that. And so I hope you guys will set your clocks and plan on being here if you can. If you can't, then I hope you will watch the replay. And we will continue to sort our way through this very extensive arrest affidavit, but in a way that we can sort of weed out some of the confusing information that's been probably intentionally circulated. Okay? I hope all of you have a great evening and you sleep well. And I'll see you on Friday. All right. Talk to you later. Thank y'all for being here. I appreciate it.